Konnichiwa, minasan! Gaming lovers desu! O genki desu ka?
Okay, look, love, I know that you missed Japan, but we are home now. You need to speak English.
Subarashi desu!
The Gaming Lovers Podcast with Brendo and Jem.
Let me try that again. Hello, everyone! Welcome back to another episode of The Gaming Lovers. We are back in Australia. Home sweet home.
Yep.
Feel good to be back.
A little jet lags. Not too bad, but like a little.
Now, people don't believe us when we say that we are jet lagged from a trip that literally has a 2-hour time difference. We're kind of jet lagged from the overnight flight we did and haven't quite recovered from that yet. But we're excited to be talking about all our adventures in Japan, what sort of gaming experiences we had in Japan, and the mountain of goodies that we wished we could have brought back with us from Japan.
We brought a fair bit back, but in this episode number 30 of The Gaming Lovers, can you believe it? We've turned 30.
Oh, looking pretty good for 30.
We are going to basically recap some of the highlights from our trip, especially all of the different video game experiences and merch that we found. But we also wanted to share some of the other funny highlights of our journeys as well. Plus, we can finally get back into gaming goals.
Yes, that's one thing that I did miss. As nice as it is to go to another country, see some sights, try new food, meet strangers that don't speak your language. Boy, just unwinding at the end of a day with a console and a TV was not on the menu.
No.
And very missed. Very missed.
Even with the handheld games, I found myself being almost too exhausted to really enjoy them very much while we were over there. So as we jump into our gaming goals, basically I got to recap the last, 3 or so weeks?
Yeah, but we've probably played less than we normally would in a single week. So
yeah,
it
pretty
probably
much.
Works out well.
I brought 2 different handheld consoles. I had my Vita and I had my DS, and I don't think my poor Vita got touched. It got dragged around Japan and not opened. That said, there were so many Vita games over there I wanted to buy because they have an incredible range of Vita games, but we'll get into that shortly. But I did have my phone, and one of the games that I played that we discovered a few episodes back when we were talking about the history of Pokemon was Pokemon Shuffle, which is like the puzzle games. They're kind of like Bejeweled Blitz, basically, but with Pokemon and
my
Pokemon
favourite.
battles. Hey, when you've only got a few minutes or you just need something to like keep you busy, but like, yeah, those are the kind of games that I love on my phone.
A few minutes. We had 20 hours in the air in total, and you were just going, just if I want to play games for a few minutes.
No, I had other stuff. But I honestly, I get very antsy on planes. Like I can't focus on video games the same way I can with other stuff. So like I'll play like a puzzle game while I'm also watching a movie at the same time. I'm one of those annoying people.
I'm the complete opposite. I think, right, I'm going to get myself settled in for 6 hours of something, and I'll be really engrossed in the game I'm playing. We'll hit some turbulence, and then the turbulence gets really rough, and I'm like, this is going to be typical. I'm going to crash my plane halfway through my game. Don't even get a chance to get to a save point. How inconvenient.
Or it makes the game feel really real. You're in like a fight.
I got force feedback.
You're just suddenly dropping a perpendicular landing.
Crunch.
But yeah, so I did not play much at all. That said, like there was still plenty of gaming experiences we had over in Japan, but I think we'll touch on that further on in this episode of the podcast. I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah,
so what about you? Because you had your DS.
I did.
Did you get much gaming done?
Yes, I did. I beat an entire Legend of Zelda.
Nice. You did a lot more than me.
I picked up a bargain before we departed Australia. Good old Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3DS. A game that has been re-polished for a new handheld experience. I have not played Majora's Mask since the Nintendo 64 when it first came out. I've only played through that game once prior. And I sort of challenged myself. I thought, well, I'm going to be in midair when I start this, and I'll probably play it for 6 to 8 hours of our plane ride because we're going during the day on the way there, so I wanted to stay awake, stay engaged. So I thought, let's see how well I can rely on my foggy memories from like 15 years ago
Yep.
and use no guides, no tips, no Googling, no game facts, no nothing. And I managed. There was 1 or 2 points where I'm like, I feel like I know sort of what should be done here, but it's not working. I'm missing something. And I brute forced it through, figured it all out. I beat the entire game, and I loved it. Almost every second of it. The
Nice.
memories that came back, the stuff that I'd completely forgotten about until it showed up again. It was slightly challenging. I did most of the extra content as far as heart containers, pieces of heart go. I finished the game with about 14 hearts, 13 or 14 hearts, which is pretty good. It's about half the amount of things you can pick up. And I finished the game with 20 out of 24 masks as well, which wasn't too bad. So then when I did complete the game and I beat the final boss, I did look up a few things and realised, oh my gosh, like 2 of them were so easy to get and they just completely missed my attention. But it was cool because back in the Nintendo 64 days, I played Majora's Mask and I played Ocarina of Time and I greatly preferred Majora's Mask. But I've played Ocarina of Time like 3 times since then, whereas I had never replayed Majora's Mask. So it was very interesting to see which one I still preferred. And nowadays, I think it is a little tighter, a little more neck and neck, because they're 2 very different style of games. But I love the way how Majora's Mask has a schedule that everyone sticks to over the 3 days. You run out of time, you play the Song of Time, you go back in time and start your 3 days again. So the more people you interact with, you know where their schedules go, everything's logged in a journal. It's very cool. Very cool.
Not everyone likes games that put you on a time limit or, you've only got so much time to get things done, which means you'll miss potentially some content that frustrates, I'd say, a fair amount of gamers.
Yeah, well, I have a soft spot for those sort of games. I love the fact that in Dead Rising, for example, time is constantly ticking. People are only available at certain times. If you don't make it to that SOS in the next 3 hours, that person's dead and gone. I like that sort of stuff. But there was one time on my Majora's Mask playthrough where I spent the first of the 3 days unlocking a temple and thought, I've still got 2 in-game days. I'll be able to beat this. Not a problem. And then by the last 3 hours left until the time limit expires, I'm like, no, I've spent hours doing this and I'm going to run out of time and I won't be able to beat this boss. I can't even get the door open. I have the key. How do I even reach the door? I'm so confused. Oh, drats. Now I've got to start it again. Back in time. I've got to do the whole dungeon again. But you get to keep a few little gadgets and gizmos and stuff. So.
And
Who's and what's it's galore? Yes, there's been some Disney, ladies and gents. There has been.
It's stuck
Disney.
In my head so bad.
So I played that. I greatly enjoyed it. It's pretty much all I played, with the exception of something that I bought in Japan. I bought a DS game secondhand for about $6 from Book Off, my favourite secondhand store in Japan. I bought a copy of the new Super Mario Brothers for the original DS because those are region-free. And the best part about a Mario game is you do not need too much Japanese language skills to play it.
No.
Perfect.
There were so many things I wanted to buy over there. And again, we'll touch on that soon when we jump into it. But before we wrap up gaming goals, there is some stuff we've managed to do in the brief time that we've been home. I've pretty much jumped straight back into Odyssey and...
Odyssey? You jumped into what? Sorry?
Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Much better. People might not know what you're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was the Mario
They
one
might be talking about Mario Odyssey or Lost Odyssey.
Yeah.
It's a popular, weird word.
But really, Odyssey, I don't know. For me, it's linked with more Greek mythology because that's... Anyway.
And who's more Greek than Mario? No, wait, he's Italian. Never mind.
But yeah, I've just jumped back in. It took me a little while to remember the controls for combat, and especially I couldn't remember how to stop my ship when I'm sailing. I'm just going in circles going, how do I leave command? How do I make it stop? And you had to Google it for me. I was getting frustrated because I'm I can't just the game down because pirates are nearby. I'm going to get attacked
Well, to be
while
fair,
I'm trying to stop.
you had to hold a specific button. So you had pushed everything and nothing was working.
Yeah.
So
I usually
funny.
figured it would be holding something, but like I couldn't remember. It'd been like a month since I'd played. Thankfully, most everything, like storyline-wise, I could still remember like the main plot points and even some of the side quests and characters that were memorable enough. So it's been easy to jump back into. So I've been having fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're a little worried about me actually playing this game.
Yeah, well, the fact that you are greatly embracing the life of an assassin is slightly concerning.
There's one bit. It's a tiny, tiny side quest. I don't think this is spoilers. Where there's a guy who asks for you to get rid of his love rival, and I was just going to try to like knock them out or reason with them, but it doesn't really give you that choice. You have to kill them. And so I'd already knocked this poor person out. And
all you had to do was finish the deed.
yes, so I'm like, okay, well, I didn't want to just like stab, so maybe I'll try to make it look accidental and have her like look like she's fallen off a bridge and into the water and drowned or something. And I threw her into this river and she's just floating there, her head underwater for like minutes and doesn't die. And I'm like, come on, game. And so I pick them back up and I think I set them on fire instead. And you're watching this going, oh, you're scaring me, honey.
Scary stuff. Trying to make it look like an accident with no evidence. Oh, what if they fell into a fire? Then I didn't do it. I didn't kill them.
It's just...
Heat and gravity did.
I was trying to make it because the person that was linked to this love rival was like a main character, and then I wanted to be in an alliance with them, and I'm like, what if they find out that I did it? So I'm trying to make this look a little less sus. I don't think it really matters in the scope of the game. I don't think that they ever find out, honestly, but like it's just one of those things where like I put these restrictions on myself, like if I had to do the job, if I was an assassin in real life, I would want to make it look like an accident so it can't be traced back.
Nothing was funnier than me watching you play and someone said, hey, can you help me get this person off the ship? And you're like, yep, no problem. Lead me to the docks. You followed them all the way to the docks and they literally said, wait, where's the ship? And you're like, oh, I sunk it earlier. And they're like, oh, okay.
But the person was on the ship, and they're like, "Oh well, they attacked us because they had been kidnapped by pirates."
Mission complete.
And I had gone to just briefly go get something off a shipwreck for another side quest, and this pirate ship attacked me like right away, and I had no choice but to like fight back. And then I noticed that there was an NPC that wasn't fighting like on the ship, but I couldn't interact with them at the time. It wouldn't let me. So they went down with the ship and then they ended up being someone I was supposed to rescue, but I hadn't triggered that quest and I felt really bad.
Just that conversation of, wait, the ship should be here. And your character's like, oh yeah, I sunk it. And they're like, oh, never mind.
It's too late now. You've already killed them. Whoops. Yeah.
Oh, fun stuff.
Oh, I felt a little bit bad about that.
Apart from that, we have played a little bit more of Super Mario Party, which we saw ads for on the trains in Japan.
Yes.
So we had immediate cravings, which needed to be satisfied once we returned.
In Tokyo, there's a train station that, because when you go to different train stations, especially around Tokyo, each platform will have a different like melody that represents that area. And Ebisu is the one everyone loves because it kind of sounds like 8-bit music. And we noticed that on like the screens on the trains, every time we went and stopped at Ebisu to pick up or drop off people, there would be like a Nintendo ad. And it would say, have a nice day and stuff. It was like the old classic Mario.
8-bit Mario.
And I'm like, that's so cool. I'm like, they can do that here because it's theirs.
As opposed to Melbourne trains where you're arriving at Richmond and it says, now arriving at Oakley. And you're like, no, no.
Yeah, oh my goodness. There's so many things we want to upgrade about our system here in Australia.
This is not the Train Lovers podcast. But...
No. even though you are a trained driver.
I'm certainly not a train lover.
Oh, I don't know. We'll get into that soon.
Oh, Japan was so romantic. So many pretty trains.
I think it's time to jump into the main topic. What do you reckon?
Sounds absolutely great.
Share the love. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/thegaminglovers.
Well, our 3 and a bit weeks in Japan was definitely not short of adventures.
No.
I was attacked by wild animals. We saw gigantic robots engage in battle with futuristic beasts.
Giant
We
snakes.
saw, so many things.
Mini Shibu Inus.
We had a lovely little drink at a Mameshiba cafe with little doggies running around with cute little scarves on there.
Licking your face.
They were loving Brendo.
They look like Koromaru from Persona 3. Oh, I want one. If we get a dog, we're getting a Shibu to sing.
Jem got some fairy floss that was about the size of her entire human form. Human form, as opposed to your other
Well, it's definitely
forms.
bigger than my head. It was huge, but it was in Harajuku. They're quite famous for their rainbow fairy floss. You might have seen it, a lot of Instagram photos of that. But each colour is a different flavour, so that was cool and yummy.
We did so much shopping. We had theme parks galore. We had good times, great times, fantastic times. But what you want to note out here is all of the video game related antics that we got up to in the land of the rising sun.
Now, if you follow us on social media, you may have already seen some of the photos that we've been posting over the last few weeks of our adventures and some of the random things that we found, some of the really cool, rare merch that we found, both on Twitter and on Facebook. We kind of did our best to at least try to post a picture a day to keep everyone in the loop of where we were in Japan. But yeah, there is some really unique stuff, some really cool retro stuff, especially at places like Super Potato, which obviously are very well known for having a lot of really old consoles in really good nick. And it was amazing to just see. It almost felt like walking through a gaming museum. You could spend ages in there. I almost felt guilty like standing in aisles because I'd be like trying to read every game. But it was still busy with people that were there to shop. And I felt like I was getting in their way a little bit.
Yeah, we went to 2 different Super Potato stores,
Yeah.
one in Akihabara in Tokyo and the other one in Osaka.
Didn't realise there were 2. I only knew about the one in Tokyo, so that was kind of cool.
And they were fantastic. Everything I wanted them to be. You walked in and you were assaulted by CRT TVs with 8-bit games playing, retro MIDI music playing here, there and everywhere. You had a wall of Dreamcast games, a wall of Sega Saturn games, a wall of NES games. Everything you want. We found Rob the Robot. We played a Virtual Boy, believe it or not.
Yeah, they had one set up.
Could not believe that we actually got to get our hands and our eyes on that glorious fake 3D red screens.
Looks more like holographic card, really. But it's still cool to see one in action, and they had one for sale that was in very good nick. There were so many things you kind of like, I wanted to buy some just as the collector in me really wanted to have some, but A, expensive, but B, so heavy and would have taken up way too much room in our luggage. So we like had to limit what we were going to get for ourselves.
Yeah, thankfully we just bought like 1,000 plushies, which didn't actually add too much to the weight.
So many plushies. Oh my word.
But it was great. We saw like everyone knows about a Super Nintendo or a Sega Mega Drive or a Sony PlayStation. But we also got to see other consoles like a TurboGrafx. We saw a Neo Geo. There was stuff that even I, having been a gamer for all my life, I'm like, what on earth is this?
Some really rare, like Japanese-only brands that never made it out west. So it was really cool to see that and seeing different like cover art on a lot of like famous games and seeing them look so different over in Japan as well, or even different sizes, like the on the family computer. Like the cartridges were a lot smaller in Japan than they were out in the West.
100%. We're so used to the NES cartridges being about half a size of an A4 piece of paper. Like, they're enormous.
Huge.
Whereas the ones in Japan are much smaller.
Mm.
Very strange. However, if you are planning on buying any consoles from Japan, pay attention because the voltage that they use over there, their power points are only 100 volts.
Yeah, they're weaker.
And so ours, in Australia at least, are 240. I think America might even be 220. So they're rather close to each other.
Mm.
But the Japanese ones, I think they would struggle here unless you get a power converter, which is very expensive and different. So, sadly, I was planning on maybe buying a console.
You wanted a Sega Saturn, didn't you?
Yeah, it's it's one of those stupid things where it's like, I want a Sega Saturn because it's a failed console. And I would like to have one.
Yep.
They were gone from our shelves before I even had a chance to get one.
Mm-hmm.
So, that sort of thing always appeals to me, just the stupid, dumb consoles to have. I bought a Sega 32X, 6 months ago, 8 months ago or something, just to play 1 or 2 games on it. So that was thanks to my tax refund.
One of the benefits of tax time, I guess. What I really loved in that store is that while there was so much stuff like jam-packed into it, it was like this organized chaos. So, it felt like, sometimes when you walk into like op shops and things like that, it feels very cluttered and a little claustrophobic, and then there's just stuff everywhere, and how are you supposed to sort through it? There's that initial feeling when you walk into Super Potato, but really when you start to really observe it, it's actually very neat and orderly, and everything's placed and well maintained, and it's just that there's so much stuff in there that it feels a little overwhelming and cluttered, but it's still quite neat.
Yeah.
So that's what really struck me, and I think just in Japan in general, they're just very tidy and clean. So it was kind of nice to see places that, even though they had a lot of secondhand goods, it was still treated so lovingly, and everything was still in good condition.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
All of the secondhand goods that you can buy, games, controllers, accessories, consoles, all looked in top-notch condition.
Yep.
But what I was most interested in there was when I saw the words "not for sale," because there were some absolute gems in that store.
Aw, me?
Yeah, you were not for sale.
No. There was a collector's, like, limited edition Metal Gear Solid premium package, I think is what it was called. So I had the game, had like a collector's t-shirt, artwork, things like that. The kind of stuff that we usually love to get if we really love a series.
Yep.
But what made this extra special, because that on its own, because it was so rare, would have sold for about $400-500, I think is what it would cost to get your hands on it these days. But this one had been autographed by Hideo Kojima.
Oh.
So it was not for sale, which is fair enough. You got the creator of one of the best and most intriguing game series in recent history, you know.
Don't think I'd have the yen to be able to buy it anyway.
Even if it was for sale.
Even if it was for sale.
You'd be one of those super rich.
Crazy
rich.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of shopping, we were astonished to have a look at anything that had shops as far as the video game side of things. Because in Australia, if you're a fan of the PlayStation Vita, the 3 of you out there that might actually be listening, you go into a JB or an EB Games or anywhere that you can get your video games in Australia, and you have a selection of maybe 3 to 8 games on the
if
shelf.
you're lucky. It's so hard to find.
The poor, unappreciated Vita, it almost equals the sales of anything else in Japan. You look at the top 10 moving consoles, and the Vita will be in the top 3 almost every week. And as a result of that, I found a large shelf, 2 meters across, 1.5 meters high, of Vita games. And I'm like, oh, this is astonishing. Look at the scope. Look how many titles there are here.
Start drooling.
And then, well, you might have been the one drooling, because I noticed a theme with all those games is that they were just the visual novels that are targeted to women.
With all the pretty boys.
That entire 2 meter across, 1.5 meter high shelf packed with Vita games, just the girly games.
Yep, just the romance.
I'm like, oh, okay. I go around the corner and there is an entire display, like 20 meters long, all Vita games.
Mm.
The whole row, the whole shelf was Vita games. It was astonishing.
And you've got like them broken down into sections with like mech games. You had strategy, visual novels for guys, horror, like everything. Almost like you would with movies or other video games, like broken into their categories. And it was also cool because they had a display case of all the different colours you could get, which we've never had the option for in Australia, or I don't even know if the West has necessarily been given an option. It's always been black.
Yeah, there was about 14 Vitas, I think, on display.
All different colours.
Take your choice.
Oh yeah, I was looking at Brendo. I'm like, I just want to buy a new one and like play all these. Like, I feel like I need to learn Japanese better just so I can play all these visual novels that we are probably never going to get over here, which breaks my heart.
Yes.
But
without the localization efforts, there are many that would be near impossible for someone of our language skills in Japanese to actually play.
Yeah.
Typically,
sadly.
two of our favourite genres on the Vita, which are visual novels and Japanese RPGs, both usually contain a lot of dialogue and text.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of rules those out, and we only get the offcuts that are actually translated.
Yes, and there's a lot that the Australian Classification Board axes as well, because Japanese, there are a lot of games, especially as far as visual novels go. There's a few that are a bit more adult content, I guess. So a lot of that stuff really gets culled before it can make its way over here.
Usually it's the developers that say it's not going to be worth us translating and localizing it if it's going to be axed anyway. So we're not even going to bother.
Yeah.
We're not going to roll that dice. But even with the online digital stores we have here, we still do get, Vita releases every week, and the PlayStation Store gets updated with new visual novels and things like that. But just to see the scope, and especially when it comes to games that we are waiting for sequels to be localized and translated, and you see the Persona dancing games that are due out next month, and we're like, should we just buy them now? They're dancing games.
Well, we just need to know the rhythms. I don't need to know anything else.
But then there's also the social interaction side of that game, so we're like, we would be missing out if we bought that here. On the PS4, Jem was stuck playing Trails of Cold Steel 2 for what felt like months at a time. Well, we are currently waiting for the release of Trails of Cold Steel 3, and then we were looking at the shelves in Japan, and there is Trails of Cold Steel 4.
I know.
And we're like, we haven't even got 3 yet, and 4 is out here.
And I may have been looking at the back cover going, where are all my characters? All I can see is Reen Schwarzer. What's happened to everybody else?
They're all dead.
They better
That's
not
not
be.
a spoiler. I'm just being silly. But if they are all dead, I'm sorry for spoiling you in just my estimation of fun.
There's just things like that. I'm like, this is killing me, seeing all these things that I've been waiting for, and they're out, and they've been out for ages, and there's other sequels, and it's just like,
Imagine if you go to another country and they already have the second half of the Infinity War, and you're like, wait, that's not fair. I don't understand what's happening if I do this.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's something that big for us. It's one of our favourite game series, and we see 2 sequels on the shelves, ready to be purchased.
You can understand, like, not that we condone it, but you can understand why people get impatient waiting for, like, favourite TV shows, and piracy is so prevalent, because it's less and less now because they've learned their lesson, I think, that when you've got a TV show streaming on a service over in the States, and then it takes them a month to have it show here in Australia afterwards, people go, that's unacceptable, and then they find other avenues to find and keep up to date with their favourite shows so they don't get exposed to spoilers online. And now, thankfully, that they've learnt their lesson and they're keeping up, and so that the same day it comes out in America, it'll come out here. But it took many, many years to get to that point. With video games, though, unfortunately, we still have a long way. And I get, like, that
it still
localization
has to be translated,
takes a
voice
long time.
dubbed.
But I do wish that they could start that process earlier. There's got to be a way for them to, like, work together with the developers, whoever it is that's doing the translating and doing the localizations. I wish that they would partner up a little better so that they could get a jump start and start that process of whether it's dubbing or just adding subtitles
Well,
sooner.
It's an additional cost, which is why developers like Exceed, who handle the translation of the Trails of Cold Steel games, they're doing like the definitive editions releasing on the PS4 of Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And the community is like rallying up and supporting each other, saying, yes, we'll all buy this so it can fund the localization of Trails of Cold Steel 3 at the very least.
I was like, even if it needed crowdfunding, I wish there was a way to like speed that process up a little bit, you know? Like, I don't know all the ins and outs, and I understand that it's a lengthy process, but I feel like there has got to be a way to stream that a little better. I don't know how, but I want to help do it. I'm so impatient.
One little surprise that we did get while we were over there is that a visual novel that we did have our eye on had a PlayStation 4 release in Japan, physical disc, that actually had the ability to transfer it to English language as far as text.
Yes.
At the very
for
least.
like the dialogue to read, not to listen to.
One of our favourite animes, Clannad.
Yes.
We picked up a PS4 copy of that because it says on the front, Japanese to English possible. So we're like, sweet.
I wonder if it was done in Japan, that might have some really funny translation.
We saw no shortage of funny translations over the course of our holiday.
Yep. Oh, so many funny ones.
But the other game that I actually picked up on this trip is something that has come out, 10 years ago and never got a English translation. I'm a big fan of the Ace Attorney series, Phoenix Wright and his friends. Well, there was also a spin-off series starring his antagonist, Miles Edgeworth, the prosecutor. The first one of his games was localized, the second was not. And Capcom have basically said, nah, not going to happen.
Boo.
So, speaking of people pirating things, it is possible to get a fan translation patch for the emulation of that game. And I decided that if I ever intend on actually playing that fan translation emulation, I should at least buy an actual copy of the legitimate game to appease my own conscience. And so at Book Off, once again, I picked up a cheap copy of that, and because it is a DS title as well, original DS, it's region free, and if my language skills get good enough one day, I could potentially play through it in Japanese.
Nice.
So I bought that basically as a collectible because I love the Phoenix Wright series and I have a lot of those games physically. So there you go. That's what else we bought.
It feels like one of those like YouTube videos where people like list their hauls when they've gone shopping. Look what I bought today, just so they can brag about what they
If we were to
bought.
actually do a podcast about everything that we bought in Japan, it would be 6 hours long.
We bought a lot. Primarily myself, I spent a lot of money on gachapon. So they are basically those little capsule machines you put like 100 yen coins into, which are like kind of like dollar coins, I guess. And you get like a little toy. Sometimes you get other weird things, whatever they can fit into the plastic balls. But they had Pokemon Quest gachapons, which I became obsessed with collecting the whole series. And we started off okay. You know, managed to get
4 out of the 5
4 out of the
pretty
5
quick.
very quickly, and then tried to get Squirtle, and that took many turns. We doubled. I think we ended up with like 4 Eevees, 4 Charmanders, like 2 Bulbasaurs, a couple of Pikachu.
Don't
It was
worry, they
insane.
will be thoughtful, heartfelt gifts to our friends and family.
Yep.
Not just simply getting rid of the extras. They were planned gifts. That's all.
But the full set will be find like a nice place to put them somewhere in my studio. They can hang out there along with many of the other gachapon things that I found. There were so many because they had Disney and Kirby and a lot of other things. We saw a few other video game ones as well, but sometimes even though it has like something from a video game doesn't mean that what's inside is necessarily what you're after.
Are you saying you did not want the Danganronpa underpant pencil cases. Pencil cases the shape of underwear.
In the game Danganronpa, when you're doing, like, once you've beaten the main game and you are just trying to collect trophies and you're leveling up all your friendships, so you've had, like, 6, like, hangouts with each character, you, like, get their friendship heart, and then you get rewarded as, like, a bonus item with their underwear. It's a little strange. It's just one of those running...
It's one of the silly extra
gags.
things.
Yeah, it's one of the running gags throughout the whole series, and they've done that in, like, all 3 games. And so when we saw that gachapon, I think that was in Akihabara, we saw that, and we're like, you can collect their underwear.
But then I'm like, no, wait, it's a pencil case.
And
it's
fine.
fine.
I'm like, why would I want, though, a pencil case in the shape of underwear? It would be less embarrassing to actually wear the underwear as underwear because it's private. No one else will know.
Are you saying you would not buy something to wear that's embarrassing from Japan? What are you wearing right now?
Oh, I'm just that's different.
What are you wearing
This
right
is
now?
not underwear. This is a cape.
I know. Isn't it embarrassing?
It's cute. I'm not. This is not underwear. This is a Eevee cape. Thank you very much. You're just jealous of my Eevee cape.
Well, we didn't have the storage room to have 2 different ones. I could have got a Gengar.
One cool thing that we saw in Super Potato that caught my attention, you know Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the movie?
Mm-hmm.
And there's that one line he likes to use when he's, like, trying to make himself look cool to chicks, or he's, like, talking about the origins of Pac-Man.
Pac-Man. Did you know Pac-Man was originally called Puck-Man in Japan? But they were worried that he was going to get defaced and then he was
so
gonna
they
be
changed it for the West. But there was some stuff released in Japan with the original name of Puck-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And we found an LSI standalone game console with the Puck-Man branding and everything on it. So we took a snapshot of that. We're like, that's so cool.
This is my favourite little bit of trivia to throw out to people.
So it was just one of those moments of, it's true. Hearing stories about it, seeing actually in the flesh is kind of fun. So that was a moment that made me giggle.
Speaking of little standalone arcade games, we had no shortage of visiting video game arcades either.
Mm-hmm.
We went to several Taito game stations and Sega. What are the Sega ones even called?
Sega.
Sega buildings.
Sega.
And we went on the hunt for the one that got away.
Yes.
We were trying desperately to find a copy of a arcade cabinet which features a table that you can flip in anger.
Yep.
And we saw it on a YouTube video a year or 2 ago and we fell in love with the idea of one day we could be the ones flipping that fake table and throwing our dinner at our families and all the sorts of fun. But sadly, as many places as we visited to try to find this video game, it was not.
It's gone. They've gotten rid of it, I think. Unfortunately, we even went deliberately to some pretty dingy arcade areas trying to hunt this old thing down. But yeah, so basically the premise of it is this big plastic-ish table that you kind of hit at certain times throughout the game to get your family's attention because you're angry with them. Like a salaryman who's all fed up with his family at the end of the day. And then finally you flip it as hard as you can and try to get points by it uses ragdoll physics as it knocks your family back. Which is kind of harsh, but it just looks hilarious.
Now, I didn't want to get your hopes up too early and get the anticipation too high because we didn't actually end up finding it. So I think it was the right choice. But there are actually other modes in that game.
Oh, really?
It's got a boardroom in an employment place. You can play as a bride flipping the wedding cake.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Such wonderful experiences that only video games can give you. Unless you want to pay for a large cleaning bill.
And wedding cakes are not cheap.
We saw lines 20 persons deep waiting for the latest rhythm games, fighting games, the dancing games. There were some popular arcade games on this trip. But we also had a little bit of fun playing UFO catchers and claw machines. some more than others. Early in the trip, I actually won you a plush toy out of a claw machine.
Yes.
And then I promptly spent about 30 Australian dollars to get absolutely nothing for the rest of the times that I used it, until I redeemed myself on our last day and won you a Kirby.
Yep, got two small little things. Anytime we went for anything a little more ambitious. Nope.
Like a gigantic Diglett,
Yes.
which was like huge.
Too heavy, I think, to be picked up, but it looked easy. That's the thing. They always are so deceptive, and that's how they get you.
And that bloody Snorlax blanket.
Yes, that was tricky. You were so frustrated with that. One thing I did notice that was really interesting, a lot of people when they go to arcades will bring like these cotton gloves to wear when they're playing arcade games because germs. They either don't want to spread germs or they don't want to catch germs. They don't want to touch a surface that's been shared with somebody else.
Well, especially the ones like the rhythm games where you're constantly moving and constantly sweating and constantly griming up the buttons. Nobody wants to touch that.
It's kind of nice though. I like they're just really considerate. They might be a little bit germophobic, but they're also considerate about, you know, what they could leave around and stuff like that. So it's interesting seeing those kind of places that would be quite grimy and a little rundown maybe in Australia look so neat and well maintained. Like, it's just like a constant theme throughout Japan, because, you know, that's the kind of place people would be eating and leaving their food and drink, and, you know, soft drink would get spilt and so the floor would be sticky. You don't have that anywhere in Japan because, you know, as soon as someone buys a drink, they stand there, they drink it, and then they move on. Like, they don't walk around with their food. They don't, you know, you very rarely see litter on the ground.
It's very strange.
Yes. But cool strange.
You know who else wears little white gloves? Train drivers in Japan.
Are you going to start doing that at work?
Well, look, I am a train driver, and I saw a video game train driving simulator called Densha Dago, and I thought, yes, I can handle this, and I decided to give it a go. And every other time I saw someone playing one of those machines, they had little white gloves, and they were pointing to the signals. And
pretending
I'm just there,
to be train drivers.
I'm there reclined back in my seat, just lazily pushing levers and buttons. And in the end, I got an A and a B grade.
Not bad.
Overall, I'm pretty happy with that.
Technically, A is not the highest grade in Japan, just so people know. S grade's the highest rank.
Don't have to bring facts into the story. For a line I was not qualified on, I thought I did quite well.
Yes. And oh my goodness, watching you play that was so frustrating because the tutorial, like every 5 seconds, like you'd just be taught something and then you'd start and then you'd get stopped again with something else. And remember this and do this. And
No,
it
you
took
don't
so
understand.
long.
That's literally the train driver experience. There's 6,000 things to do at any given minute.
No, I get that, but it was just annoying. I wanted the game to start already. It was taking too long. How did it compare though? Driving, I know it was a simulator, but like seeing the way that their signals and stuff are laid out compared to back home here in Australia.
I have no idea how their signals are laid out. But...
They do look a little different.
Mm-hmm.
So...
But I understand how to get a train moving, even though all the instructions weren't in English. I got it moving, I got it up to power, I stopped at the right spot, tooted my whistle appropriately, and I think that's what I got the A grade for, was appropriate whistle usage.
Yes, it punishes you for overuse. A game that punishes you for behaving badly. It's totally not Grand Theft Auto. Kind of the complete opposite. It's funny though that like even the simulators are as well behaved as the trains are in real life.
Yeah.
Popular game though. Every time we went into an arcade, they were always busy.
Well, some young people there love their trains. At the local DVD shop, you can buy DVDs of trains just driving around.
At a lot of like electronic stores and stuff like that, there were sections of just games, like video games based on trains as well. And I think there was a video game version of that Densha game, like that simulator that you played, that you could have played on the PlayStation. You could have brought it home and played it here.
Thrilling.
You say that in that tone now, but when you got in there, you were actually kind of giddy. So for all of your like pretending to be like annoyed with trains. I think you secretly love them, you gunzel. Which is the term for like people who are like obsessed with trains. Little bit of inside knowledge for you all. Someone's annoyed with me now. Let's change the subject. I want to change the pace a little bit and talk about some other transportation that we saw in real life. One thing we got asked about by friends if we were going to do, but we had never organised to have a Japanese like driver's permit, which you have to do at least a month before you leave.
International driver's permit, yep.
So if you ever wanted to do Mario Kart in real life in Japan, you need to have a permit organised, and it costs a little bit of money. And unfortunately, the company is under a bit of scrutiny from Nintendo now, so it may not be in existence by the time some of you make it to Japan if you're planning on going.
Well, they found the perfect loophole, because when we saw them from a train first, and then secondly when we were crossing the road, we saw, yes, there was a Mario involved, but there was also a Minion and a Harry Potter character and a Spider-Man. And it was much more diverse. It was not Mario Kart. It was more mascot kart.
It was just so strange seeing, Mario with Spider-Man and with Minions and Harry Potter. And we're like, wait, what? This has gotten interesting.
Now, to be fair, I did not actually see them use any explosives or projectiles
or
banana peels. So I'm a little disappointed.
Yep.
Yeah, if we had...
Or helmets.
Or helmets.
No, I'm like, how are they allowed to legally drive on the road doing the same speed limit as cars without helmets?
I'm pretty sure if you crash a go-kart, you're going to need more than a helmet.
But even so,
your face will be hitting the road.
Here in Australia, even going on like a normal track, right, in a just a normal go-kart place where you don't need a special license to drive, you have to wear helmets. Like, so to me, that was kind of strange to see them, and just on main roads without helmets. Like, I'm like, how?
Yeah, you know how? Do you agree to the terms and conditions that you are not held legally responsible if you crash? Yes.
If you
done.
Die.
That's it. That's all it comes down to.
But don't you legally have to wear helmets though in Japan? I would have thought that would be a road rule.
How many people, when we were in Kyoto and everyone and their dog was riding a bike, how many of those people did you see wearing helmets?
Not many.
How many? I saw 0.
I thought I saw at least one helmet, but it was a rare sight to see people wearing helmets with their bikes, I guess. But yeah, it's funny for a country that is relatively safety conscious that they don't have that. Like, that's just, I guess one of those small cultural differences that isn't that big a deal, but it feels like it's one of those jarring things to see when you're so used to it the other way.
It's almost like everyone's polite and considers respect to be an important factor, even on the roads. Well, who would have thought?
True. But that doesn't stop accidents from happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's human error.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway. We've totally.
Why do you have to labour these points so much? It's just a bit of fun on the roads. What could go wrong?
Famous last words right there. One of my favourite things that we did in Japan, now this is not video game related, but I wanted to share this story anyway.
Oh, boy.
There is a place near Kyoto, which is quite famous. It's called Nara. And in this little town, it's basically run by deer. So you walk the streets around and there will just be deer everywhere, sometimes on the roads with the cars. But they run the town because part of their religion, I think it was with the Shinto religion, they believe deer to be messengers of the gods. And so they're revered and no one's allowed to hunt them or touch them. And people go there and feed them, and when you feed them like these crackers, they will like give you a little bow nod for the food, like thanks for the food. They've been trained. And it's really cute. And we got some great photos and videos. And then as we got deeper into the park, closer to like the temple there.
Yeah, we got the advice that the ones on the outskirts of town are much more polite and well behaved. The ones in the heart of the town where the giant park is, they're going to be basically throwing a knife in your face and saying, give me your crackers.
A bit more scary, a little bit more rough, a bit more aggressive. And yeah, especially the closer we got to the gates of the temple, we noticed that that's where the scary deer are. And when it was Brendo's turn to feed them, he got swarmed by deer, like just surrounded on every side, and he's busy feeding one, and then another one comes up and bites him on the butt. Oh, it was so funny.
Yes, I boldly declared, yeah, this will be fun. You can film me. I'll feed the ones that are a bit more spazzy. I'll feed the ones that are a bit more aggro, shall we say. And it'll be entertaining.
Yes, well,
I had fun for about 30 seconds. Then my posterior got chomped. And my jumper got chewed on and my backpack got munched.
Yep, they were pulling you from all directions trying to hey, feed me. So funny. And thankfully, because I was filming, I'm worried because I was standing so close to you that they were going to try to munch me, but they looked at me and they knew that I didn't have crackers. They took one look and they're like, nah, she's not holding. Go back to this guy.
No,
they were smart. They knew if you were trying to hide, because you at one point you had one hand behind your back with the crackers and you were holding the other one, going, "I don't have any. Leave me alone." And they were like, "I'm not falling for that."
We've been around this block a few times.
Yes. So you had to, in order to make them leave you alone, you had to really hide the crackers and show both hands were empty for them to then leave you alone. That was really, really fun for me. I love that so much. And just seeing you get swarmed by deer.
I've never heard you so happy. That's almost not even an exaggeration.
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't have to agree so much.
It was so much fun though, because I got to feed them first before that with some of the younger deer that were a little more gentle and timid and very sweet. And I did have one point where I got surrounded by deer, but none of them got aggressive, didn't get headbutted, didn't get bitten or anything like that. So it was really fun to have that experience, and I think it's worth a day trip if you're ever going to Japan. We'd put that one on the list, high on the list.
Yeah, and sneak a cracker into your friend's back pocket for extra laughs. I'm sure that...
That would be pretty funny, actually. But even if you don't want to feed them, it's worth going and watching other people feed them, because some of the funniest moments were watching other tourists freak out, or little kids freaking out getting chased by the deer. And we did see a couple of older male deer full on fighting on their hind legs at one point too. We're like, whoa. So it was a memorable day for sure.
Indeed. What also was a memorable day was when I got to finally fulfill my destiny and go to a Sega-based theme park indoors called Joypolis.
Yes. And the mascot was?
I think it was a hedgehog of some sort.
Yeah, some blue guy.
Yeah.
I don't like him very much.
Hispanic? What's his name? I got my photo taken with Sonic the Hedgehog. He was actually there in person, or in Hedgehog.
Yes, the legit shortest mascot we've ever had our photo taken with. So funny.
I towered over Sonic.
I was taller than some, because normally, those big, animal suit kind of costumes that, if you're at Disney or, a theme park, they usually are, at least average height, sometimes much, much taller.
Yeah, a normal-sized human plus the outfit,
yeah.
So it adds the extra, foot or so.
Whereas this felt like it was a child in a costume and then the giant head. But we were still taller, both of us. And so that was one of the strangest but kind of funniest moments for me. It was I'm taller than a mascot. This is fun. But you got to talk to Sonic in Japanese.
I got to tell him that Sonic was Ichiban, which is number one. He's the best. And Sonic gave me a big old fist pump. Yes! He was very excited. I was very excited.
But one special moment, aside from that, at Joypolis, was you doing the zombie zoo. Now, this was something I was a bit tired. I had kind of running out of steam by that point of the day. So I went and sat at the cafe while you went and did this activity by yourself, because it was a scary thing and I was not interested.
Yeah, Joypolis has your standard arcade machines. It has bigger arcade experiences. It has a couple of thrill rides,
yeah,
like roller coasters. A couple of projection-based, rides where you sit and you get jostled around while there's a big projector screen, and it's all very immersive. And then they have a couple of walkthrough experiences where you have a guide. In this case, it was the Zombie Zoo, and myself and a young, good-looking couple of Japanese descent. We became friends through this close bonding experience. A scientist woman ushered us in to show us where they're researching zombies, which is fantastic because if the outbreak ever occurs, we obviously need to know everything we need to know about zombies in advance to avoid situations like The Walking Dead. So it was very informative. She ushered us in. It was basically 90% Japanese, but I could still pick up the occasional thing, and it was a lot of physical explanations and a couple of simple English phrases, like the easiest way to hide is to shut the curtains. Just remember that, it might be important. So you're like, excellent. Thanks for the tip. And then we went through, and then of course, some people may have seen this coming. I did not, but the zombies actually took over the base that we were in. We had to run for our lives. The woman guide, showed us where to go. She told us to sit down on these seats, and then she pulled a gun on us and asked us if we were infected, show us your hands. We showed her our hands to make sure we weren't infected, and she was all happy again, put the gun away, smiling faces again. Wonderful. And then there were zombies out the windows. We had to sneak up and close the curtains, and it was wonderful. And then something burst through one of the windows, and we ran for our lives again. And it was fantastic. It was so fun and immersive and fun, and I wish you had been there, but I know you probably would not have enjoyed it as much as I did.
And I don't think you would have made friends with the other group that was in there with you had I gone with you. Because you went by yourself, it forced you to engage with this other couple that was with you. And you made friends. You made Japanese friends and took a selfie with them.
It was fantastic. But that was just one little experience. We bought a cover all pass where, with the exception of things that actually win you prizes, we could do pretty much everything. Like the Zombie Zoo, which I did. I did a Sonic Athletics where it was me versus 7 other people on a giant treadmill. And we had hurdles, and we had a 100-meter dash and a hop, skip, and a jump, and it was good fun, and I came second, so I'm quite proud of that. We also did an indoor roller coaster, which had a rhythm game built in, because it's Japanese, and of course, they have to have their rhythm games.
That was Tokyo Ghoul themed, I think, at the time that we were there, so it had some cutscenes from the anime that you were helping fight in different key bits, and we had not seen Tokyo Ghoul, so we had no clue the characters or what was happening, but it was still a lot of fun.
We also did a half-pipe spinny whirly gig thrill ride thing that also had a rhythm game aspect where we both had to tilt our feet forward or back depending on which way we wanted to rotate the machine at the exact moment to score the big points.
Yeah, gave you kind of the feeling of skateboarding at a skate park. A lot safer though.
And unfortunately, we came last out of the 4 teams on that one.
Yeah.
The team that won, the boy and the girl who won that, they must have been in complete synchronization because they smashed the score.
Yes. And I think for locals that live nearby, they could go on that repeatedly until they've got it perfected, whereas for us, we're first timers and just getting used to it. And yeah. Some stuff got a little lost in translation, but it was still just a lot of fun to walk around.
We also spent a few extra yen on the Sonic Carnival, where we attempted to win some prizes on the Hedgehog Hammer minigame, which is basically just a timed whack-a-mole. You got to hit as many little things as you can, and you've got, 45 seconds or something to do it. And we fell short by 2 and 3 respectively. Very close. Sadly, we did not get Tails plushies that I wanted so badly. But then we did another game where you roll a ball and try to make it land on a certain hole. And out of our shots of that, I won a little slime from Dragon Quest. So I did not leave Joypolis empty-handed. But there was one experience that I absolutely refused to do at that, and that was the Room of the Living Dolls. Because if anybody knows anything about my horror aspects, which you might have heard in the
Halloween
episode we did recently. I do not like mannequins or dolls or anything like that. They are among the creepiest things. I will see grotesque mutants. I will see zombies. I'll see ghosts. No problem. But do not put me in a room full of living dolls.
You're listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. Want to join the conversation? Visit thegaminglovers.com. Record your comment or question by clicking on the button on the right-hand side. And you could be featured in the next podcast.
There was a couple of things we did in Japan that were kind of like stereotype, very much pulled from like anime and certain video games and things like that we just wanted to do just so we could say we've done it.
We dove headfirst into the geeky culture in Japan.
Otaku culture.
No doubt about it. And a requirement of that
Yes.
was to attend a maid cafe.
Yes, absolutely. It definitely felt like it when we were in Akihabara, I think, because Steins Gate especially really puts an emphasis on the otaku culture blended in with all like the electronics and things like that. With one of the main characters in the story owning and running a maid cafe throughout the series and stuff. So in honor of that, while we were in Akihabara, we went to a maid cafe. One, I guess it's kind of like a chain restaurant, really, that's around Japan, Maid Dreamin'. There's quite a lot of them all over Tokyo. And so we visited one, and I think we were pretty well prepared for what we were going to engage in. We actually recorded a little bit. We weren't filming or anything because you're not allowed to take photos or film the maids while you're in the restaurant, but we recorded some of the audio of just some of the fun conversations that we had with the lovely waitresses there.
Kitty.
Here, master. There.
Hi.
Thank you.
すみません。砂糖にありますか？
Okay. One moment, please. Yes, delicious magic together. Yeah. Delicious. Delicious.
Delicious.
Meow, meow. Yeah, thank you. Very good.
ありがとう。
Delicious.
うん、美味しいです。
すごい。日本語にゃ。ありがとう。
Have you been to Shibuya or Harajuku?
Shibuya.
Shibuya? はい。もう行った Already?
Yes.
Oh,
Yesterday.
yesterday. Where did you go in Shibuya?
Shopping.
Oh, seems like a little bit risky.
原宿明日。
明日? Do you know 可愛いモンストカフェ?
That's one.
I have been to Kawaii Monster Cafe and bought this. Very entertainment cafe.
On our list. Can't wait.
Yeah, when she first saw it, what?
Take photograph, okay?
Yeah.
じゃあ、come on stage, please.
かわいいにゃん。
One of the highlights there, I was handling my dessert fine. Made it through my entire parfait. You were struggling a bit, and so I was trying to find the word for surrender or to give up. So I was
Wave a
punching
white
that
flag.
into my Google Translate, and I just punched in the one word of surrender. And it came up with a suggestion, which is a Japanese phrase, which translates to, I have no choice but to give up. And so when the maid came back around and
To collect our dishes.
I pointed to Jem and pointed to my phone and said, yeah, this is her right now. And she almost hit the ground laughing so hard. It was very fun.
Yeah.
There we go. That's for you. This one.
諦めました。諦めしかないですね。No, no. 諦めないで。
So we found ways to engage and interact, even though like we don't necessarily fully speak each other's languages fluently, we still had enough to like communicate and still have fun with the locals. And it was interesting because maid cafes have kind of an interesting stigma to them. I think for a lot of foreigners coming in, they just seem strange and add it to the weird list of cafes that Japan has, from, you know, owls and hedgehogs and cat cafes and et cetera, but like it's their whole other level. Like even in Japan, it's considered a little, you know, nerdy, I guess. You know, it's specialized. It's very niche. Let's just put it that way. So those who go that are locals are really into that subculture of, I think, anime and things like that as well. But it's not as creepy as I think it's painted as in some ways, or at least where we went, it wasn't creepy at all. It kind of just felt like dinner theatre, you know, like
100%. And a dinner theatre that if you get a little goofy as well, it makes it so much more fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't be held back by your shyness. Just
Yeah.
get out there.
Get rid of the inhibitions and just
make
have fun.
some cat noises and be all cutesy with your drink and good fun.
Just go along for the ride. It's so much more fun when you're willing to kind of let go and just enjoy it instead of feeling like an idiot. Because if you start getting self-conscious, especially in a place like that, it kind of ruins the experience. So for us, we kind of just dove headfirst in, and I think the maids like that worked there, I say maids, but they're just waitresses, really appreciate people that are willing to have fun with them. So it was kind of cool because while we were there were these two lovely girls that showed up in like full on like beautiful kimono. They were all dressed up, looking like they're about to head off to like a temple or like a festival or something. Like they were so dressed up. So it was just a really fun thing to see, like the vast different clientele that went there. But it's nowhere near as seedy as some other places. Like host clubs, on the other hand, you would want to stay clear of, or at least be very, very cautious if you try to dabble in that. They tend to have a bad reputation, more for scamming people than anything, but still.
That's the whole point they exist.
Pretty much. But yeah, we actually really enjoyed that. I get that it's not for everybody. Like, it really depends on what your personal taste is as far as what you find entertaining and engaging. But the food was actually okay. Like, we got parfaits and drinks. We didn't actually have like main course meals. We just went there more for like an afternoon tea, and that was fine. I think we were filled up. I couldn't finish my parfait.
You had no choice but to give up.
But it was delicious. I'm actually kind of craving it now that we're talking about it. I really wish I had another one in front of me. It was really yummy. So that was just another thing like that we'd seen so many times in different like Japanese video games and anime that we wanted to experience, and it's felt a little weird, but it was still worth it, and I'm glad we did it.
Well, speaking of diving headfirst in with no inhibitions, we also dabbled in some karaoke. My first ever karaoke experience outside of the PlayStation SingStar titles. I went into those headfirst with no inhibitions. And
well, it's helpful when you're in a private room and no one else can see you.
they can still hear you a little bit.
Yes, true.
And we can definitely hear them a little bit. And tambourines galore.
And sometimes drums. It was cool. Some of the karaoke, we tried 3 different ones all up as we travelled across Japan to compare the different brands.
We had bongos.
There was bongos in one of them and a full-on stage. I'm like, if you had a big group and you had a room like that, that would be so much fun. Some of the layouts and the room decor were really cool. So we might have to see if we can find something like that here in Melbourne. I'm positive we have stuff like that here. But it was cool for you because in Yakuza, karaoke is one of those like mini games that you can play.
The game series that I dove headfirst into with no inhibitions before we went to Japan, I got to experience quite a few things that I had got to experience in the game and then in the real Japan that it's based on. Karaoke being one of them.
Yes.
It's a very stereotypical thing to do in Japan, and
absolutely,
boy, there are karaoke venues.
Everywhere.
3 on every street, it seems, at times.
Yeah, you like every block there's another karaoke place and tons of rooms in each one. So,
but it was cool, even something as simple as seeing a Don Quixote store, which is their discount shop, where the aisleways are probably about
can fit like one
half
person.
a metre each, if that.
Very squishy.
6 floors of all sorts of items you could ever want, from Kit Kats to bed sheets to alcohol to everything.
Yep.
So even just being in there and hearing the Don Quixote jingle playing over the speakers, Don Quixote.
Some of the few stores that felt messy just because it was so crowded and like the staff never had a chance to clean up after people.
But that shop is in Yakuza. The fun thing about the Yakuza series is that they use actual brand Suntory, which do a lot of different drinks, from alcohol to orange juice. It's all Suntory.
And pop melon drink. Oh my gosh, I love that and I miss it.
Pop melon. We got the hot tip from one of my workmates to make sure we try
So
Suntory pop melon. We did. We loved it. And I think my dentist will be seeing me very soon. I also quite enjoyed hot canned coffee. I've tried Boss coffee before, but I'd only ever tried it cold. There's certain shelves on the konbini stores in Japan that you can have hot coffee. Hot canned coffee. And I decided to give it a whirl, and I probably ate half a dozen cans.
You ate the cans?
I drank the insides of the cans.
Just chewing on them.
Crunchy.
Love me some aluminium.
Well, we don't want to waste anything in Japan. It's very efficient. I probably drank about 6 of those on our entire trip, so I quite enjoyed those. We also experienced things like in Dotonbori in Osaka. Some of those scenes are replicated in the Yakuza series. I ate from the crab shop that has the giant crab.
And paid what, like
Little
900
pricey.
yen for a leg?
But I still think
loved it.
I think it was delicious. Much more so than your cheddar rella dog, whatever it is you ended
well,
up
technically what I had was Korean street food.
All the
But
way
it
to
just looked really appealing. It was something that I was like, yeah, I'm actually in the mood for that. So, and I had always wanted to try one, but never really came across it until that point in our trip. So, yeah, that was really cool. Just deep fried cheese, baby.
It's also kind of fun, the entertainment district of Shinjuku. We were walking around using my knowledge of the area in Yakuza. I could direct us around certain areas. I saw something like a batting center and got excited because it was in the right spot, making the right sounds. We saw a vacant parking lot that I'm like, yes, this is in Yakuza. And you're like, it's a parking lot. And I'm like, yeah, but this is where you fight the guy who thinks nobody can punch him. So he always dodges, and then you beat him and he gets upset. And you're like, but it's a parking lot. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. I have an attachment to this parking lot.
At least when we were hunting for locations for Persona, though, they were a little bit more landmarky. So, like when we stood with the Hachiko statue, which is at the Shibuya Scramble Crossing at Shibuya Station, you know, that's people line up just to get a photo taken with Hachiko anyway. But you can see that dog in Persona, and there's also the green tram that's like adjacent from it, which we had a photo taken. We found the place where you meet up with Yusuke in Shibuya Station, where the 109 Men's used to be. And in the game, I think it's called 105, and now it's called something different. They've Mag 5 or something like that. So they've rebranded it, so it kind of ruined the photo for me. I was like, no, they've taken away the 109. It doesn't quite look the right way, but it was still cool to like. We found the juice bar that you get the juices from to help boost your stats. We found one of their hideouts, the cross walkway where you can see the crossing from through the windows and
Yeah,
posed.
I got excited for a parking lot, and that's ridiculous. But hey, look, it's a window with a bar next to it, and look, it's fantastic.
I'm sorry, it had a good view of the crossing. That's a good photo spot.
I know.
It's better than a parking lot. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, that parking lot made it into more games than a Persona hideout did.
Another one that we got excited for, we both got excited for, was Steins Gate. Finding a few different key points, like the radio building where the time machine gets like lodged inside the top there, and getting an Uber from that building just like Mayuri does. And I may have completely like my brain melted at that point. I was deliriously happy that I had an Uber from the exact same location that Mayuri got one. I was just so happy.
Very cool.
There's one famous kind of like location, Crossfield, which is right near Akihabara Station. So as soon as we got off the train, I like see like this major part from the anime and from the game, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And so we almost like lined it up shot for shot, like got a perfect comparison thing. So
We step out of Akihabara Station, the hub of video games, manga, anime, nerd culture. I'm so excited. I'm going to go to Sega. I'm going to go to everything. And Jem is like, look, a bridge. So
we had to get that photo. We were right there.
that sums up our Japanese experience right there.
Yes.
Taking photos of seemingly innocent, strange, just landmarks that are not tourist attractions at all, but they mean so much to us.
And one that's not video game related, but I want to mention anyway, was the staircase from right at the very end of the anime movie Your Name. And we deliberately went out of our way for that one. It was near Suga Shrine, and had to take like a local train to get a little bit further out in what felt maybe a little more suburbia, even though it's still technically city. Yeah, and we were not the only one who made that pilgrimage. Like almost every minute there was someone new coming to take a photo of those stairs. And there was this group of teenagers that were there like reenacting that shot, and they were filming, and they were taking so long. Because we were waiting for them to be done. We didn't want to be rude and try to push in.
Get in their shots and ruin their project.
Yeah, exactly. So we were like waiting for them to be done, and then we were like kind of going, oh my goodness, they're taking forever. But after about 15 minutes, we finally got to do our photo.
We were polite. We were not arrogant foreigners barging our way around Japan. We were polite.
Although it was tempting to be at some points, I tell you what. I was like, can we just want one photo? You guys, can't you just pause filming for a minute, please?
Oh, and I just remembered I also ate sea salt ice cream, which is something I've been wanting to do since playing Kingdom Hearts 2. Roxas and his little squad enjoy the good old sea salt ice cream, and so it was delicious. I couldn't believe how good it tasted.
Now we're going to see if we can find it in Australia.
If it was available here, it might be a contender for my favourite ice cream flavour. Can't believe it. Cookies and cream is in danger. Now, the main event of this podcast, the thing we're going to be talking the most about, the thing I'm most excited to share with everybody, is that we are no stranger to games that have escape room experiences. Locked in, there's puzzles, there's hidden keys, there's codes, there's all sorts of stuff you have to escape. In real life, we've done escape rooms, and they are among my favourite activity to do.
Yeah, especially if you've got the right group of like friends.
You get a group of people together, about 3 to 4 people is usually best. You get your heads together. Okay, we've got yellow numbers on this wall. Okay, there's a locked thing that has 4 digits in it. Okay, we can do this. Great fun. I love that feeling of almost being in a video game. In Shinjuku, we got to basically live out a Metal Gear Solid experience. At the Tokyo Mystery Circus, which is about 6 floors of various escape rooms, puzzles, dinner theatres, all the fun stuff.
Even one where you have to try to escape a toilet cubicle. Not even kidding. Oh, so funny.
So they have a stealth experience, which is, imagine like a empty warehouse, but very small, very condensed. There's lines of boxes you can sneak around. There's a live guard patrolling the hallways. You have to figure out code key combinations to get into rooms off that main central room, solve puzzles in there to get more code keys to then get into the next room, but all the while there's a soldier walking around trying to hunt you down. 3 days before we touched down in Japan, that got branded into a Metal Gear Solid themed stealth experience to celebrate the 20-year anniversary of Metal Gear Solid 1's release.
1998.
Yes, 1998. An easy enough number to remember, isn't it?
It is now.
We had lockers to hide in, guards coming in, bashing on the locker doors, trying to startle us to see if anyone was in there.
Yeah.
We had hidden rations to find to extend our time limit. We had guards to hold up with fake guns to get them to give us key cards.
There was hallways you had to like get through with Gatling guns where you had to time when you ran through the gap so you wouldn't get shot. Like obviously not with a real gun, but like, oh, it was still tense. You're like counting, like going, okay, it's gonna end and go, and then run and then hide, and you're like, oh. So and they don't give you a lot of time to get from point A to point B in those sections too. They're pretty hard.
And if you have ever done laser tag or paintball or anything where you are constantly crouching for 30 minutes, you know how exhausting that is.
Yes.
Combined with a stuffy room, combined with a chunky tactical vest.
Yes.
Combined with the nervousness and adrenaline of a guard patrolling around looking for you.
Mm-hmm.
It was great fun, though.
Nerve-wracking, but great fun. My knees were very bruised. Like, it took days to for that to heal. There was one section that was kind of fun because we had collected like a disc which had intel on it, and we had to engage with someone that's kind of like Otacon in the game, like another scientist, and I think the code name was like a frog or something.
Agent Frog.
Yeah. And so we had to like knock on this door, and the door only opened from the inside, so they had to let you in once you showed that you had the disc. But the guy opened the door, and then because it was so heavy, it just shut right away before, like, he didn't open it very wide. And so it shut, and I couldn't get in, and so I'm, like, knocking on the door for him to open it again, and then the same thing happened. And finally, I think he thought we didn't understand him, even though he was using like broken English with us.
Mm-hmm.
He got a piece of paper with like a sign that says "Please come in" written in English, and he's pointing at it like we're stupid and don't know how to go through a door.
Well, he couldn't raise his voice or the guard would have found us.
But basically, like, the door was super heavy. Like, I had to push with a lot of weight. Like, it was, I think, almost like a soundproof door, like, to get through. Very weighty. And then thankfully, while you're in that section, then your timer stops, so he can explain the next section. So then we had to go into the second half. Once we got past the warehouse again, we got stuck on the door. This was where the passcode that he gave us was 1998. And
the year that Metal Gear Solid came out.
Yeah.
Should be easy to remember.
And that's what you said. Should be easy to remember. And in my brain, I heard that as 1988, the year I was born. And I thought the reason you said it was easy to remember was because it's my birth year. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Cool. How cool's that?
So we crouch down, we make a run for the door, and Jem goes to enter the code. And I'm like, yeah, we've got about 20 seconds till the guard comes. Plenty of time. Punch in the code. Deet, 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 deet. Eh. Okay, try it again. You're like, it's not working. I'm like, 1998. And you're like, oh.
And what was freaking me out was that not only do they play like music from the game over the speakers, like the tense music to give atmosphere, but they also have like the bling sound effects.
Yep.
And I heard that just as I was punching in the last time, and I panicked thinking we'd been spotted, but it was just the guard going into another section of like the course basically. And I was just like freaking out, going,
Panic-stricken.
No, we've been busted. And if you get caught and you get shot, then your time gets like deducted. So once we got past that, and then we had to get past the guard with the gun and get a pass card to open the next door. And then we met our doom.
We met our doom in a laser-filled room where we got stuck trying to do our best Catherine Zeta-Jones in entrapment.
And we got entrapped.
And we got entrapped and shot repeatedly from an android and failed our mission.
Yep. So there was a person there that was playing like an android Gatling gun. So if you... The string that was like making the laser field, they had bells attached to them. And so if you hit them even slightly and they jingle, then you get shot. And they were ruthless. And the frustrating thing was that it was not easy. They made a very hard laser field to get through. Like, ridiculously hard. And we're wearing these very chunky, like, vests. So even normally I think I would have struggled to get through that, like, agility-wise, even without that vest on.
I've also got an iPad lanyarded around my neck that I'm trying to hold against my body while manoeuvring. Not easy. And, yeah. Overall, it was a great time. Exhausting. We left that so sweaty.
Yes.
So sweaty.
We came so close to that last room too, because as soon as like you fail and you've run out of time, you get escorted out. You have to raise your hands and you're taken to the exit. But we saw as we left that there was like a small little vent that took you to the final room where you could deactivate the Metal Gear. And we're like, oh, we were just about to get to the end. We were so devastated. We were this close to like, let's go back in. We know how to do it faster now. But yeah, we were spent energy-wise. It was exhausting, but a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. So many wonderful experiences, and I think Japan is easily one of the top places we've visited in the world, and one that I think we will be going back to again and again.
Yeah, our holiday was customised for our interests. Not everything that we did on our trip would interest everyone, but we had a lot of fun. There is, we've only been back for a few days, but there is certainly some things that we miss from Japan.
There are some things I would like to bring back to Australia if it was feasible in any way.
So what's that?
I made a list.
Okay.
Because, yes. Okay, look, this is going to sound weird, but a lot of it has to do with toilets.
Having just experienced Japan
Now,
for 3 weeks,
and
I would expect nothing less.
I don't mean the squat toilets. No, they can stay in Japan because I don't have the balance to use those. But the other ones, you know, you often hear like stories from comedians and stuff about the high-tech toilets in Japan that talk to you, and they're pretty amazing. I love that. The cleaning feature, as weird as it sounds, like if you've never used one before, it may seem a little weird, but they're actually pretty wonderful and very hygienic. And I want one. I don't know how much they would cost to install here, but let's start saving.
I set mine for maximum pressure. And it was a deep cleanse.
But one thing I loved about the public toilets, aside from them being ridiculously clean all the time, which was just amazing to see, even in shopping centres, which just doesn't happen in Australia, unfortunately, because people are gross. They have these like sensors or buttons that you can push to play running water to drown out the sounds that you're making in the bathroom so that no one can hear what you're doing. And it also helps relax you because if you hear, you know, the sounds of running water, it
We've
helps.
all had the stage fright, I'm sure. We need to go to the bathroom and then suddenly you hear someone knuckle down and like,
you don't
hear
someone
someone sit down in the
or...
next cubicle and...
It's not nice listening to other people, and it's also like you sometimes get a little self-conscious. I know I had that a lot in high school because there were girls that would like openly make fun of other people when they could hear them in the bathroom, which was just made me more paranoid about what they thought if they heard me. So I loved that feature. I'm like, that's such a cool thing, and I wish we could implement that. And I think that's feasible, but I don't know.
Every time you go to the bathroom now, you're going to be playing a YouTube video.
Of water running.
Water running down a stream.
And the third thing I loved about public bathrooms was in the women's...
The third thing you love about public bathrooms.
I know. This is...
What has this podcast become?
It's not about games anymore. It's about toilets. In the women's bathroom, they had, in some of the stalls, they came with like little like plastic seats. I don't know if they had these in the men's, but seats that you could put your babies in.
They did have them in the men's.
Isn't that such a cool idea? So if you've got like a toddler, obviously like brand new, like newborns wouldn't be able to fit in there, but if they're old enough to hold their head up, you can put them in these little plastic seats that are tucked into the corner of the cubicle so you can do what you need to do and your child's not like standing around
or laying on the floor, licking the bowl.
But yeah, so that way if, you know, you can't find like the parents' room, which they still had those there, they had that other option. I thought that was just so cool.
Now, the fourth thing I liked about public toilets in Japan was while we were at Joypolis, the urinals
yes.
had video games built into them.
Yep.
There was a target on the urinal, and the longer you could keep your stream accurate and consistent, I put out fires. I was doing my part to save the planet. And it was fantastic.
That would be great, I think, in primary schools, like to motivate kids to pee where they're supposed to and not.
Gosh, what does this podcast come to?
But hey, video games can help in
Yeah,
all sorts
we
of
didn't
ways.
mention that on our video games wrongfully accused podcast. We could have talked about the benefits of peeing on a video game.
Oh my goodness. Another thing I would love to bring back would be like the train system. But also the people that ride the train, because they're so much more politer. They actually wait in nice lines rather than just shoving past each other to get onto the train. But there are some things on the train system that are kind of cool. Like every station, as I mentioned before, has like their own jingle that when you get to a certain station, like even if people were like napping on the train, they would wake up as soon as they heard the jingle. It's like almost like wired into their brain, and then they'd get up and leave. So things like that were kind of cool, and it made it nice and fun, and like hearing all the different jingles for each place. Things like the screens and stuff that they had on the trains, giving detailed information. Even if a train was delayed by like 2 minutes, they would explain why and what things it affected, and like it saved the hassle of like the poor driver and conductors and stuff having to explain or try to give announcements. They could just put it up on the screen, people could read it, no, all good, and everyone's happy. So I imagine you would love things like that implemented at Metro.
We are talking about trains. I have tuned out.
I'm sorry. Let me change the store then to gachapon machines, because we have them here in Australia, but they suck.
And we have like 2.
Yeah.
And that's what you have. As opposed to Japan, where you walk into a shop and it's literally just a shop of capsule machines.
Yeah.
Spend your money however you like.
Or even if you're in a shopping centre, there'll be like sections that just have rows of them, like in certain branches, or as you're walking along a path, there'll be like rows of these as well, even in department stores. They're just part of the scenery, like they're everywhere. But they have better quality stuff in them than what we have back here in Australia. We have really dinky stuff, and they charge way more for them. Like we get charged like maybe $5 for one toy, whereas Japan is like $2, sometimes $1, depending on what the item is.
Yep.
Like if it's a really rare, better made thing, then you might be paying closer to like 500 yen. But even so, I was just like a little bit jealous because some of the stuff in there was really unique and decent quality stuff. So I would
like
love that.
the underpant pencil cases.
No. Oh my goodness. Vending machines that don't rip you off.
Yes, 100%. A vending machine every 50 to 100 metres, no matter where you are, whether you're in a city street, a shopping centre, field,
Yep.
just an empty lot, there's still a vending machine.
It's almost as cheap as buying it from the supermarket. It's only like a markup of maybe 20-30 cents that we found for like a can of drink. Like if you got the same one from a supermarket or a conveni, it wasn't that much cheaper. So it was nice to know that they weren't charging a huge markup for the convenience, whereas in Australia, at the very least, we know that if you buy a drink from a vending machine, you're getting almost paying double.
And not only that, I'm sure we've all experienced the inner thoughts of going, if I put my money in this machine, am I actually going to get the drink that I want?
Yeah.
Or is it just going to vanish into the abyss? So everything works reliably and
Well maintained.
cheaply.
And it was interesting seeing like cigarettes and alcohol in vending machines. I'm curious to see how they police that. Like, how do they stop kids from buying it? That's just one of those things that went through my head when I was there. One thing I would most love to have in Australia, out of all the things that we've mentioned, is Disneyland. Please, Disney, come on. Come on, we have the land here.
We have plenty of vacant land.
We do. Turn all of the desert into like the biggest Disney in the world. Do it. I would love it. But more important, like Disney, about a decade or maybe even 2, went and said that no country is allowed to have a Disney store in it unless they have a Disneyland. Because Australia used to, at Chadstone Shopping Centre, have a Disney store. Which I loved going to. Like, if we had to go to Chadstone, the only way Mum could get me to go shopping with them was to say that we would go to the Disney store and I could go shop in there for a bit. And I loved going in there because it was so much fun, and they would always be playing Disney music, and it's just such a pretty store. They always lay it out with cool like statues, and it's a fun place to shop. Like, it's hard to explain, but like there are just some shops that have character, I guess, and personality, and that's one of those places. The Disney store is always a fun place to shop, and I was heartbroken when it got taken away, and Disney basically said, nope, unless your country has a Disneyland, no Disney store for you. And I was like very heartbroken and want it back.
So that's why we need
That's why we need a Disneyland or a Disney World. Make a second Disney World. There's only one. We could make two.
Disney
could be
Earth.
the world down under. It would be amazing.
Perfect.
And there's you could have like a huge thing dedicated to Nemo, since there's all of the Aussie stuff linked in there.
You're rambling on something passionate again.
I know. I'm sorry. But hey, with Kingdom Hearts 3 on the verge of coming out, Disney is still on the brain, and it was cool to see a lot of new things as more and more trailers come out. And that was another thing we kept seeing ads for everywhere while we were in Japan, was Disney Kingdom Hearts. Although it was really interesting hearing Disney characters speak Japanese.
Yohoi, moimasu!
So strange, but fun. And yes, so I miss Japan already. We've been back only a short while, but we had such a good time.
Yes, definitely one of the places I do intend on returning to at some point in my life.
Absolutely. Before we close this episode of the Gaming Lovers podcast, we actually need to come up with some gaming goals for this week.
And this is chaos, because in the 3.5 weeks we've been away, so many games have come out.
That they have.
Including a little thing called Red Dead Redemption 2.
So are you going to delete everything off the PlayStation so you can actually have room for that?
Well, no. Because I'm waiting until Christmas for that one, because if anyone's seen my backlog, it's still a fat log.
Yes.
Did you know Red Dead Redemption 2 outsold Red Dead Redemption in its first 8 days?
Wow.
Now that is demand. That is building the hype train.
Mm-hmm.
All of Red Dead Redemption 1's lifetime sales squished in 8 days.
Man. That's impressive.
Very impressive. Hitman 2 is another thing I'm probably going to wait for. All these things coming out that I just would love to drop money on, but I don't have any left.
Off to Japan.
Because Japan I spent an awful lot on. But I am going to start some games, and it's going to be nice not having the crushing pressure of I have to beat these before Japan, I have to beat these before Japan, I have to beat these before Japan. Now it's just, I have to beat this before Christmas, I have to beat this before Christmas. So I am going to play Yakuza 0, continue my run through that series now that I have a bit more breathing room. And I have had a break for a month, which prevents a bit of series fatigue. And I am also likely going to keep my usual habit of playing more than one game at a time, and finally get around to my playthrough of Dark Souls 2. Which I was challenged on social media by a bunch of random people who participated in one of my polls several months ago to do it with 0 guides, 0 tips, 0 anything. A pure blind run. Now, I was apprehensive about doing that until I played Majora's Mask with 0 guides, 0 tips, blind run. And I did that. So I think I can do it.
All right. Well, live stream.
Oh,
I think that's the least you could do for the people that voted on your poll.
That's embarrassing.
You haven't live streamed in ages.
I'm
You've been away in Japan.
So much.
You need to give it to your fans.
It's embarrassing.
I know it's embarrassing. That's half the fun.
Especially in a game like that where I'm just going to be running around like an idiot, not knowing where I am, having terrible weapons equipped.
It's
I
half
might
the
do
fun.
it.
Sometimes it's fun watching people who absolutely suck at games.
Oh, you didn't disagree.
I'm just saying, lean into it, honey. Lean into the skid.
How pathetic. And what about yourself? Oh, you're obviously going to be a little busy killing NPCs on boats, right? Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I assume, is going to be getting most of your attention?
Absolutely. There's a few things that are coming out soon that have the potential to steal it away. With Pokemon Let's Go on the horizon, I'm keep changing my mind whether I can wait or not till Christmas for that. I'm a little worried that the special edition ones are going to sell out. And part of me, I'm not big on pre-order. It's very, very, very rare that we do it. But I'm not sure. Like, part of me is like, well, maybe I can wait until afterwards and then I'll get it and see if it's worth it, especially with the Pokeball, like, Joy-Con that comes out with the game. Like, that looks cool and I want it, but I'm also, like, not sure if it's going to sell out or not. So I'm keep changing my mind. The other one I'm waiting for is the Persona dancing games. There's 2 that we saw, like, as you mentioned, in Japan, and I wanted to buy them there.
Then and there.
And I was on my way to the register and you stopped me. So I'm itching for those and I really, really, really want to play them. But again, I'm like trying to be pragmatic and be like, should I save it for Christmas? Should I be a good girl and wait and just focus on the games that we already have and finish those? It's so hard. I don't know. So, but at the moment, Odyssey is my priority and everything else is gravy.
Gravy. Delicious gravy.
I love my gravy.
You do love your gravy. That's not an underestimation at all.
It's really not. If it's good gravy, I will turn my roast into a soup.
That's disgusting. I
It's
couldn't
not.
think of
It's
anything
delicious,
worse.
actually. I love gravy.
Well, we've talked about gravy soup, we've talked about funky toilets, we've talked about everything except for games for the most part of this podcast.
Oh, that's not true.
We will try to refocus next week and give you a bog standard Gaming Lovers episode. In the meantime, I'm Brendo, she's Jem. We're tired.
We're still jet lagged.
We still need to consume more games. So we are out of here.
Bye now.
House key.
Thanks for listening to the Gaming Lovers podcast. For more episodes or to watch some live stream gaming, visit thegaminglovers.com.